In Sudan, the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, have taken control of the Zamzam refugee camp in the Darfur region. The UN says at least 400 civilians were killed. It's one of the largest camps for internally displaced people in Sudan. And local aid groups say the RSF targeted civilians on an ethnic basis, hunting down community leaders and their families. Now, RSF fighters released video that has been verified by matching trees and the road layout with satellite imagery. They drive through the camp with smoke rising and fires burning in the distance. One of them says in Arabic, "Inside Zamzam is free of everything. God is great." Close quote. Now, the RSF have declared a separate rival government in areas they control. What life might be like there is clear from other video from Zamzam, which is too graphic for us to show you. It shows RSF fighters shooting unarmed men lying on the ground. Other images show fighters standing over several dead bodies lying in the road, seen from above. The extent of the mass destruction is clear. The satellite imagery from Maxar Technologies shows buildings erased in Zamzam, mirroring prior RSF attacks. Now, the RSF has dismissed the allegations, saying the camp was being used as a base for army-aligned groups. I'm now joined by Emi Mahmoud. She's a Sudanese-American poet and activist. Emi is from Darfur. Her family fled Sudan, and she has been advocating for attention to the continuing violence in Darfur. Welcome to DW News Africa, Emi. You've been personally affected by the civil war raging in your home country, Sudan. The Zamzam camp for internally displaced people is a place many of your family members have lived in for years. The world is learning now of the atrocities that have been committed there. What can you share with us?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It is very, very inspiring to be able to be here and raise awareness about what's happening in Sudan. But one of the most painful things right now is what happened in Zamzam in the past couple of days. And it's not unique to Zamzam. It's also not unique to this war. So what happened in Zamzam is that our entire people were attacked. More than 400 people were massacred, including children and aid workers. Hundreds of thousands were displaced. And as we speak, many of our family members are missing, including 58 family members from my extended family. 58 girls were kidnapped by the RSF, and we're still looking for them, and we don't know where they are. And the thing that's so painful about all of this is that an IDP camp is supposed to be a place of refuge. And Zamzam camp before the war was that place of refuge. And during the war, it swelled to the size of almost 2 million people or more because hundreds of our villages were burned in the surrounding areas. And we worked very hard as the IDP network to move people as quickly as we could to Zamzam and, deal with the issues of displacement and bring them to safety and, mobilize on the ground as we've done since the start of the Darfur genocide. And now we're facing the aftermath of the Zamzam massacre, dealing with the same thing. And we're afraid that if the world doesn't act now, we'll be dealing with the Al-Fashir massacre. Al-Fashir is the city that is next to Zamzam, where my family is from. And Zamzam is also where my father's side of my family have lived for almost 20 years now. I have lived in Al-Fashir. I've worked in Zamzam. I've done everything that I could. I've even, mourned and celebrated there as a daughter of the people. And so what's so difficult right now is that we have a lot of noise, but it's not necessarily focused on the people of Sudan. So I think that's what I'm here to highlight, that we are not, we're here and we're working and we need your help.
The focus has been on the human impact of this war. The war in Sudan is now the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. We often hear that. But the violence has also seen the destruction of Sudan's cultural and historical artifacts. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the sites that have been destroyed and their historical meaning?
Yes. One of the largest museums in our country was destroyed in Khartoum, and the Umdurman Library, which housed their books, and the Ali Dinar Palace in Darfur, and also the Museum of Niala. So these cultural heritage sites that were destroyed, looted, and again, like I said, this annihilation is not just of our bodies, but of our stories and our history as well, and of our culture. What's so difficult right now is that if you look at the images coming out of the museum in Khartoum, you see that the only thing that was left was this very large statue. And forgive me for not remembering the exact name of it, but it was something that's part of our heritage, and it was just too large to move. And the reality is that these artifacts that were stolen, just like we've seen in Syria and other places as well, they're going to turn up either in private collections or museums or somewhere else, because the way that this genocide is being funded is not just through direct weapons and funding through the different entities that fund the RSF and the SAF, but also through this booming business of war. And so the reality is the things that they did. Ali Zidan was the last sultan of Darfur. So I forgot to mention that. So what they did by destroying the palace, destroying the museums, destroying the books, stealing and looting everything, and taking away everything that is part of our history and our culture. It reminds you of what happened in Marawi ages ago. So most people don't know that in Sudan, there are more pyramids than there are in Egypt. But our pyramids, they were also looted and destroyed, and our mummies, they're gone. So even there's a poem I say where I say that our ancestors' bones become someone's collection of things. So what I'm saying about this is that colonial powers in the past have looted and stolen the history and heritage of Darfur and of Sudan, of all of Sudan, of our long history of the Kushite kingdom, of 3,000 years of history, of our pyramids, all of that. It's happening again. And so this is why I think a lot of us don't say that it's a civil war. We say that this is a war against the people. It's not with the consent of the people. And, if colonial powers have taken our history, our heritage, have stolen, before things about Sudan, there are things from Sudan in the British Museum and other museums all around the world. And tell me what you think of a power that claims to represent Sudan, but is somehow still stealing and destroying the heritage, killing the people and all of that. So I think that this is very, very important for people to know that there's a rich history in Sudan, and it's in danger of being erased and destroyed. And as an indigenous person, I'll say that our languages are not written. Our indigenous languages, they're not written. And so it's passed down through oral tradition, which is why I write so much poetry, because that oral tradition is from our history as well. And our people who are our story keepers, our history makers, our history keepers, the women, and the men and family members and children and grandmothers and grandfathers from all over every part of Sudan who hold that history have been killed over and over again. And so there are gaps missing, huge gaps that are forming of missing history in our culture. And they are trying to erase Sudan and erase our history of it. But push and preserve it. And as long as we create and live, we cannot be erased.
Emi Mahmoud, thank you. But I know that you've prepared one of your poems for us, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing it. So please go ahead and recite that for us.
Thank you so much. This poem is called Sudan Baladi, and it talks about the escalation and the way the most recent war happened. And again, I stand in solidarity with all of the people across Sudan, and I call for you to remember our families in Khartoum and Al Jazeera and Al Ubaid and Al Nuhud and all of the different areas in Sudan, in Darfur, in Judana, and Niyala, and Zamzam is bleeding right now, but Sudan has been bleeding for decades, and we need to pay attention and call everyone to action now. And I share this poem as a poet, but I share everything that I said about our culture as an anthropologist. And I'm actually calling in from college right now at Yale. So I want to say that this is a very important moment for people to see us and hear us. This poem is called Sudan Baladi, which means Sudan, my home. Another war came crashing down on our bodies. The cut of a broken piece and the bite of a broken promise are the same, except with the first one, death follows and takes everyone around you. Back home, our skin is green because we're full of life. A full life looks so different when it's poured out onto the rubble, rotting in the streets. Every university became a grave, every garden a final resting place. Our brothers and sisters fall faster than we can dig the holes. On the receiving end of a bullet is a little girl, a mother, a family, a home. Airstrikes, Ahoy, Adana, airstrikes, Ahoy, Adana, blood in the streets of Khartoum and Al Ubaid, blood in the mountains of Al Fashir and Al Janana, in the pyramids of Marawi, the mountains of Al Fashir, the wadis of Niyala and Al Janana, blood across the skies of our beautiful country, Sudan. Baladi, who did this to you, my love? Who stripped you bare and turned all your children loose? The bodies fall, they don't stop. The killing starts, we don't run. Hoping against hope that it's a mistake, that if we sit quiet and still enough, maybe it'll stop. That if our hearts beat loud enough, they'll know that we're human, that we bleed the same blood, that we bleed the same blood. Who decides who lives or dies? My uncle Abdulaziz walked home from prayer. The bomb soared down from above and took him and 4 neighbors away from us. Sunrise saw my cousin Ammar on the way to college, my uncle Abdulaziz resting at home. Each found a bullet, each found an end. My uncle Ibrahim resting at home. My uncle Ibrahim Ahmed lost his life when the hospital shuttered. I held my mother as we cried for her brother, for all of our people across Sudan. Our families broke fast together one night and planned burials together by morning. The next day comes and there's nowhere to run. My country falls to pieces and my people go missing one by one. Roads covered, rubble still bleeding, sent to a bottom of a crater, reduced to a footnote in a world said to be in crisis. First orphans, now refugees. For the first time, the second or the third, a home is burning. See the buildings falling, see the fire flashing, hear the people evaporating before our eyes. The hospitals filled with the wounded and our lungs filled with ash. Then the hospitals closed and the borders too. And the headlines named our killers, but not us. And the world keeps moving, and the people whisper it's a mystery, and their names turn to memories in our mouths. Their names turn to memories in our mouths. A country without its people, a people robbed of time. How can I explain what it's like to sleep and not wake up? Or to wake up and know that it happened again, and you are oceans away, crying, screaming, praying for our voices to be heard, dying for our lives, literally dying for our lives. In my country, wars have ended, but peace has never come. Who bought the bullets? Who sold the guns? Who pulled the trigger? Who decides who lives or dies? Who decides who lives or dies? Who will bring the peace? Who will stop the war? Tell me how to make it stop. Tell me how to make it stop. Sudan, Baladi. Who did this to you, my love? My country, can you hear me? My country, can you hear me? Thank you.